Good evening, folks. We appreciate you taking time out of your evening to join us tonight. So we are back for another round of our Kettle Chat series tonight. And tonight would make round number 6. So just want to welcome you guys back if this is, if you've been joining us through all of this. If not, if this is your first one to jump on, feel free to go on to the Farmers Co-op Facebook page. All of those set there, or you could jump on the Farmers Cooperative YouTube channel and catch those there to kind of get brought up. So just kind of want to walk through a little bit tonight to remind everybody that everybody's lines are muted tonight. If you are joining us down in the bottom fraction of your screen, there are a couple of options. Either you can call in or get your audio from the computer speaker. As you guys got questions tonight, Mr. Ted Perry is willing to stop in the middle of the presentation and address any of those questions throughout. So feel free to drop those questions straight into that chat box. I will be monitoring that this evening. And we've got somebody monitoring our Facebook stream. So feel free to drop these questions in. If you're joining via the mobile device and using that Zoom app, in the bottom right hand will be 3 round buttons. And if you click there, it'll pop up an opportunity to select chat and drop those in. So on our Facebook Live, we've got someone monitoring that. Drop in any questions, any comments that you got. So I'd like to start off. I'm Christy Keeler. I am a Purina sales specialist located in the Tulsa area. I work with Farmers Co-op and all of their 15 retail locations. So with that tonight, we've got Ted Perry joining us. And Ted, we appreciate you taking the time out of your evening. And he's going to visit with us a little bit about supplementing our forage, just kind of follows up with what Dr. N.T. Cosby talked with us last week about the importance of our forage quality and doing some hay testing. So with that, Ted, I'm going to turn it over to you this evening.
Okay. Hi, everybody. As we get started, okay. So if you all want to let me know when you can see my screen.
So Ted, I just stopped sharing, so you ought to be able to take over the control now.
Okay, tell me when you can see my title slide.
We are good to go there, Ted.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks, Christy, and thanks to the Farmers Co-op group to have me on. It's always fun to give meetings, and used to be we did this live, and now we do it this way. So it's kind of a learning experience for me. I'm used to working with the crowd, and like Christy said, if you have a question, raise your hand or do the chat thing. That breaks me up. Otherwise, I just kind of go faster and faster and faster. And after about 15 slides, we've got people trying to bid and stuff. So questions help slow me down and keep me on track. So if you have a question, let's get started. All right. This is some older data, but this kind of sets us up kind of where I live and where Dr. Cosby and where Christy lives. The total cow cost, this is, was set up in this version was done in 2016. Show my age a little bit. The first one of these I did was in 1986. These numbers have gone up. These numbers have changed quite a bit. But these numbers down here in the right corner have not changed all that much. The total feed cost is 65 to 70% of the cost of owning a cow, and most of that is the forages. We in Purina, as a nutritionist, I get to play with this down here with the protein and the minerals, and my goal with that is to supplement the forages correctly, so that we get as much as we can out of the forages to make that happen. So Dr. Cosby's probably already talked to you about this, but one of the things that is the greatest resource we have is grass. One thing, the cow business is based on grass. There's not very many cow operations that don't have some kind of forage, and that's pretty much the beauty of the beef cattle. And that's they take this forage, which is not really utilizable by humans, and we turn it into beautiful human food called beef. So it's kind of a neat story that we tell ourselves, but we probably ought to do a better job of telling the community at large. The forages, that one thing about forages, we have a lot of them, but it never stays consistent. So this is kind of the fun part as being a nutritionist, is we constantly have to monitor, and we need to tweak the diet a little bit to make sure those girls are getting what they want. Starting out early, vegetative, the spring grass, it's got plenty of protein and energy in it, but it can be pretty washy. Sometimes actually can help ourselves by putting out some dry matter, some hay or something, to let the rumens catch up a little bit. So we'll go through each one of these phases as we go through tonight. One of the things that we're looking at, and I'm just going to use energy as an example. We start out in the spring of the year, energy is extremely high in energy, and then that slowly degrades over time. By the time we get out here into August and September, the energy has dropped enough to where we probably need to start supplementing to make sure that those girls stay in good condition. When we compare everything as it goes through the year, we've got starting in the spring, here's the real high quality stuff, real high quality protein, high quality TDN. Notice how much the cattle can eat. I mean, they can eat 2.5% of body weight. The reason being is because this is very lush. It ferments very rapidly, and we can get a lot in. Once we move into transitional is where we start to see some seed heads starting to form and things like that. Look how it drops. I mean, basically it's cut protein in half, and 60 and 90 days after spring, or about 60 days after spring flush, we're down to half of the amount of protein, dropping energy in the same way. And now we're getting into where the physical limitation of how much forage that those cows can eat. And then once we get down here to reproductive, everybody pretty much realizes that we've got to supplement those, or the girls are going to start falling behind on us. So what controls intake? When I talk about percent of intake, we've got rumen fill. That's basically how much stuff we can put in the rumen. As that grass starts to mature and those stems start to get hardened up or starting to get lignified, they just start filling up the rumen. They don't pass out of this rate of passage slows down. Rate of passage is simply how long the stuff stays in the rumen. We've got to provide the groceries to the rumen microbes, which we're going to talk about a little bit. And then this maintaining pH is important, which we're going to talk a little more about, because the microbes that digest a lot of grass, they like the higher pH. They're kind of wimps when it comes to lower pH. So we have to take care of them, and we can really help our overall feed efficiency as we go through. The rumen microbes require, basically rumen microbes need a source of nitrogen, usually in ammonia, energy, and then micros and minerals and vitamins. The key thing for rumen microbes is they don't sleep. So they need it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And this is where the IM Tech products that you probably heard of, the snack feeding, the multiple meals per day, this is where it really comes in handy. And we're going to talk a little more about that as we go through. It doesn't, it's pretty obvious, when you hear a lot about, we have to have a balanced diet. And this is a study from University of Missouri that I like to use because it really represents what we do a lot in the beef industry. And this is a measurement of rumen microbe population. The reason rumen microbe population is a good measurement is the more microbes we have in the rumen, the more is there to digest forages, and the more rumen the more forages that are digested, the more energy we get out of the rumen. So the game, one of the games we're playing with ruminant nutrition is how many rumen microbes can we pack into that rumen at the same time. So this study was basically done where they fed a balanced diet, and that's where they measure the rumen microbe population, and then they drop them back to just hay, and it was a medium quality hay, and notice that they lost 60% of the rumen microbes. When you lose 60% of the rumen microbes, you just lost 60% of the energy going to that cow. You lost the protein going to that cow. So her productivity was just cut by about 2/3. Okay. And then in this, the thing that I like about this study is then they added back 1.5 pounds of soybean meal or 4 ounces of an 8% phos mineral. And they got the same response back with crude protein and minerals. So both of these are important. So when as we're talking tonight, I'm talking about a balanced diet and how we supply that balanced diet to the rumen microbes. Depending on what's going on with the forages, that's going to change our supplementation strategy. I don't want to get too far into this. My shout out to water. Water is important because every time that cow takes a drink, she's flushing that rumen. When she flushes that rumen, she's taking some rumen microbes out, which gives space for some of the other ones to grow. And at the same time, it's also moving feedstuffs out so that there's more space. We talked about rate of passage. That helps the rate of passage. We get stuff moving out of the rumen. Cows get hungry, they can eat more, and our intake goes up. So clean access and good water supply is important for our feed efficiency. Okay. Just real quick on phosphorus, we tend to think of when we're supplementing, they don't need minerals. I'm a big fan of cows need minerals all the time because this is a dairy cow and that's where a lot of our rumen studies are done. But the bottom line is if we drop below 0.3% phosphorus, okay, it's the fall of a year, we've got cows going out on corn stalks. Those corn stalks are about 0.3% phosphorus. If we drop phosphorus, we're dropping the energy available to the rumen microbes. We're going to see a lower feed intake, reduced digestion, and reduced microbial protein synthesis. Remember, we talked about the more bugs we make, the better off we are. We drop phosphorus, okay? Just something as simple as reducing our mineral program or not getting the minerals out when we need, or reducing the rumen microbes. We're going to reduce the amount of energy we get out of that rumen. And bottom line is we're going to drop productivity and feed efficiency. So when minerals are always important, you've probably already had somebody talk about that, but I just want to reiterate that. Now, well, the fun thing about microbiology is we're talking about literally billions and billions. In a 1 milliliter, okay, that's 1 cc. In a functioning rumen, there's 10 billion bacteria, and then 1 million protozoa and 10,000 fungi. Bacteria, because of sheer numbers, do most of the fermentation work. But the more of these little suckers we have, the better off we are. Okay. Now, we talked a little bit before about the pH. There's two types. There's the fiber digesting microbes. They like their pH above 6.2, and the starch digesting, which we tend to see in feedlot diets, they do well in lower pH. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about feeding strategies, but keep these two them. And it's a huge oversimplification because there's millions of different types of bacteria, but this is a simple way to look at it, and it's pretty effective and pretty accurate. The reason we talk about that above 6.2, okay, if we look at this graph, the class of microbes, as I screw that up, the class of microbes that are here in the solid green line, that's fiber bacteria succinogenes. Those are, they only digest forage, okay? So where you've got, corn stalks, you're out on mature forages, these guys are doing the most of the work. The problem is they don't do well with low, sorry about the dogs talking here. Sorry. But the fiber digesting microbes, if we start doing a lot of supplementation and say we throw out 5 pounds of cubes, if we just throw out 5 pounds of cubes, those girls eat that right away. All of a sudden, these other microbes take off. They're starting to produce more and more low fatty acids that may or may not be utilized right away. pH drops. Our big fiber digesters right here are starting to reduce efficiency. That's why we want small meals going through, and we talk about the importance of snack eating. Okay. Now, okay, I was gonna say, I think I'm locked up. Okay, so just real quick on the microbes, what we see is they digest the feed and basically feed the cow both in energy and protein. And the better job we can do with them, the better off we are. Now, getting back to forage quality. Poor quality forage, you know, this is a study done at the Animal Nutrition Center with poor quality forages. The cattle left to their own devices, they only ate about 13 pounds of that. Better quality hay, they ate 18.5. So the higher the quality, the more digestible, the faster it goes, the better off they are. So, you know, we talk about hay quality. It's purely a function of how much we can get in. This is a picture that I stole from Dr. Lee Dickerson years ago. This was some work he was doing down in the Southeast. They were using Accuration blocks with these heifers. And this was some very mature forage that you can see. Put them out there with this Accuration block and look how they cleaned up that forage. This is a good example that with low quality forages, if we balance the diet for the rumen microbes in the heifer, they can get a lot of good out of this and make some low quality feed out of it. If we don't supplement these types of forages right, this heifer is going to stand still. Hopefully she won't lose weight, but she's certainly not going to gain weight the way we want. And if we've got pregnant cows out there, we're probably not feeding those fetuses the way we want. So we can do a lot with really low quality crappy forages. We just have to balance the rumen right. So when we talk about that, where does that start? You know, we talked earlier about you've got the lush spring grass, and then you go to medium quality and then low quality. Once the crude protein starts dropping below 8 or 9% and the TDN starts dropping below 50%, that's when it's really hard to meet the rumen microbes and the cow's need. So that's when we need to start doing our supplementation and moving that stuff forward. So we're going to go through a series of slides, and this is different supplementation programs that we have available, and some of it's some older data, but it all still works in today. This initial study was done at the research center, and that to give you an idea, you know, it's an example of Accuration liquid, but this was actually done with Superlix 2HL years ago. But what they did was they had 750-pound steers in the metabolism crates, feeding them a 7% crude protein hay. With no supplement, they ate about 6 pounds of hay. The other two treatments, they took 2.5 pounds of Superlix, excuse me, and with those 2.5 pounds of Superlix, these are cannulated steers, the ones with the hole inside, so they just dumped that in the rumen, okay, because they wanted the effect of really, you know, a bolus dose, or just, you know, as fast as they could eat it. When they did that, as you can see, we lost 0.5 pound of hay intake. Think about what happened when we did that. We dropped that Superlix in there. All the rumen microbes go nuts. They drop the rumen pH, the forage digesters that we talked about earlier. They stop working, so therefore hay intake goes down. That same group of steers now, instead of dumping in 2.5 pounds at 8 in the morning, when they dump in that over 3 equally spaced meals through the day, now watch. Now they ate an additional pound of hay. So you get, basically with this, they got 15% more energy from the hay because they got more hay into them just by properly supplementing the supplementing those steers. We've done the same stuff. This was years ago when we were designing the rangeland tubs. This was done with Kansas State in 1997 to give you an idea of the timing on it. We opened the tub plant in Fremont in 98. So this was done, we were figuring out formulations and everything else. But what we found, this was with steers at K-State, 5.7% prairie hay, fed ad lib. We put a tub in there. They ate about a pound of tub per head per day, but they increased forage dry matter intake by 11% and digestibility by 7.8%. So when you're getting more intake and more forage in them, and more energy out of that forage, that's when you get what we call associative effects. So you're getting more, you're basically helping your feed efficiency because you're doing a better job with the forages. Okay. Later study, again with K-State, different set of animals, looked at the same thing. These are 750-pound steers, again, about 6% protein. 3013 tubs this time, but the control steers got 10.7 rangeland tub. Now this was a little higher improvement. Last one was 11. This got 22% increase in forage digestibility. You go through all of the math, and the total energy available is basically 38.5% more. That's basically taking low quality hay and making it decent quality hay. Okay, so that's just by proper supplementation. You all are familiar with the rangeland tubs. Yeah, they ate a pound, but they didn't, they ate 0.92 pounds, but they ate that over 24 hours. So they're little small meals, throwing the sugars and the protein at the rumen microbes to jazz those up really gives you a big improvement in the amount of forage you eat and the digestibility of the energy you get out of it. Same thing, this was again done at K-State this is with 1,200-pound cows. Now with these girls, we threw 3 pounds of a 14% grain mix at them, along with the cooked tubs. This study in cows mimics that study with Superlix that we started with. It's the exact same story. You got less forage intake when you bomb that rumen with 3 pounds of grain. If you feed small meals over a long period of time, even though it's a lot less energy going in, you're going to get more energy out of that. So the total TDN of the cows went from 10.3 to 12 to 13. So one more pound of TDN those girls got per day just by supplementing the rumen right. Is basically the same story. I've got a couple of slides here on Accuration Block just to show you where we've done some testing. This was done, I stole this slide from Dr. Chad Zender up in South Dakota, and sorry about that. But basically what we found there was over a wide range of cows, whether range cows or stocks, what we saw was, the nice thing is all of them are increasing body condition scores. There's a range of intake with the Accuration blocks compared to the rangeland tubs. You think with the rangeland tubs, we just pretty much know they're going to eat 3/4 to a pound a day. With the Accuration block, the beauty of the Accuration block is on energy needs of the cows, forage quality. We have a variable intake to meet what those girls need. Overall, okay, I mean, you've got a range here, like this group, they hardly touched it with higher quality. As winter set in, or stocks, when they start using those up, now they're up to 3 pounds. Average is only 1.7 pounds. So this is a really neat product, but you have to be aware of this range of intakes, and the girls are going to eat what they need when they need it. Okay, so if you're used to the 1 pound a day for the rangeland tubs and you go to Accuration blocks, make sure, let's make sure that we know what we're doing, because there is a range here and it's supposed to be that way. So that's why, this is a really neat product, but we have to know what we're doing. Otherwise, it's going to be, wow, why are they eating so much? Well, the reason they're eating so much is because the stocks are pretty much out and the girls are getting what they need. Okay. Moving on, maybe. There we go. This is what we talked about with the associative effects. By feeding the rumen microbes, which increase in more forage intake and digestibility, we get more out of each unit of intake. Okay, so if I'm looking at a feeding program all year, if we look at the early vegetative, all we need here is minerals. And as a reminder to myself, I always put the mag minerals here, just to remind folks that if you're going to use having mag minerals out before they go to grass, or that to help fill the tank, if you will. But certainly we want to have minerals during this time of year. As we move to transitional, okay, now we're getting to the point where they're not meeting the needs of the cow anymore. So that's when they need supplementation. Now, it's subtle, but I need to point out, when we're in this transitional, if the cows are in good shape and we're holding body condition, the rangeland tubs work really great, okay? You can also use any of these Accuration products, but this is where the rangeland tubs really shine, holding that body condition, helping to increase that feed intake, but help holding body condition. When we get down here into reproductive late fall, corn stalk, kind of this time of year, and moving through the rest of the year, notice how we've still got minerals, because we need minerals at every one of these. But now the Accuration blocks and the Accuration products, in my opinion, take precedence over the rangeland tubs, because I want to make sure those girls are getting what they need with this real low quality stuff. On top of that, we've got winter, which increasing maintenance with that. So that's why there's a slight, we need all the products, but that's why there's a slight change. All right, so how do we check? Okay, Manure Scores Manure Scores do a nice job of telling us what's happening in the cow by what's coming out of the cow. Okay, so we're just going to spend a few minutes on this. The Manure Score 2, it's pretty runny. This we tend to see in the spring of the year when it's really washy. When you see manure that looks like this, especially on pasture, you can probably help yourself by putting out a little bit of hay or a little bit of dry forage to help slow down that rumen a little bit, to help maintain it in the rumen a little longer, to let the rumen microbes get a hold of it and do a little more digesting here. So this, what it looks like this, very spring of the year, they might benefit from a little more dry matter, okay? This is the ideal manure pat. So you guys have been, doing this, sounds like, for weeks. This is probably what you all wanted to know. You guys can now say that you've seen a picture of the perfect cow pie. This is what we want to see, because as you can see, there's not a lot of fiber in it, but there is some consistency that tells us that we've got all the goodies out of it. And this is our ideal, what we want. As the pasture starts to harden up, now this is a feedlot. This is actually taken from a feedlot. You can see the corn. But as the pasture starts to harden up, you can start seeing more fiber in the diet. As we see more fiber in the diet, if the fiber is here, it's not being used in the rumen. If it's not being used in the rumen, then it's a waste, and we're not getting the efficiency we can out of it. So once we start seeing manure start to move from here to here, that's when we need to start thinking about supplementation. When we get to 5, things are really off the rails. Dr. Ballou, who Dr. Cosby and I work with, she's got a good line. If you see road apples that look like horse turds in the middle of your pasture and there's no horse, then you've got a big problem. When you look at this, you can just see a lot of fiber. What's happening here is the rumen microbes are not getting adequate supplementation for them to digest this fiber. What little fiber is there, what looks like we've got pretty sparse forage availability. What little forage is there is not being utilized and not feeding the rumen. So when we see this, we're probably dropping productivity. We're certainly not gaining body condition scores. If this is on replacement heifers, or replacement animals, we're not getting the gain out of them we want. And certainly with all this fiber in here, we know that we're not getting any feed efficiency, so our feed costs have gone up. Okay. With that, just a summary. The forage quality changes all season long. Testing is a good way to determine the hay quality, and supplementation as you go through and watch the girls certainly helps, and manure scores help keep you in line and can let you know what's going on in that cow. With that, I am done. Oh, excuse me. No, I'm not. I lied. Here's your homework. Think about your herd, what you're going, what's your production goals, where you want to go. And then let's work with the folks at Farmers Co-op and Christy, and let's see what's needed as far as minerals, mineral tubs. Certainly, we talked about fly control as we go through the year. And then let's watch the herd performance. Let's make sure that we're moving in the right direction. Now I am done. Christy, you're muted.
I am trying to talk and you guys are not hearing me because I muted myself way too good there tonight. So apologize there. So got a couple of questions that have come through. So I'm going to kind of go back through these, Ted, so bear with me just a second. Okay. So when we start thinking about protein tubs, I know we touched a little bit about our Accuration tonight, about the tubs and the blocks, and a little bit about the 3013. Is there, so if we're using, at what point do we really know if we need to use, say, like a 24% per tub, a 3013, or those Accurations? Can you go in a little bit more details with that tonight?
If you look at the different products, I can tell you 3013 was pretty much designed for corn stalks years ago. That was kind of our target audience there. But once you get, and in my opinion, a good rule of thumb is when you start baling hay. Because when we start baling hay, generally start to see that the quality is going down. We've pretty much maxed out the quantity in the hay field. But once you start baling hay, usually your percent proteins in that 12, anywhere from 9 to 12. That's pretty much the break point as to where we need to start supplementing the cows. Now, depending on the cow body condition, either the 3013s. Now we have the new 2412 tub with high fat that I think is going to be really beneficial to help those girls hold their body condition. You saw the data. I mean, 3013 was developed in 97. It's still an awfully good product. But there's other ones, there's other technologies that can be used. As far as the 2412s versus 3013 versus the Accuration blocks, as long as we have them out early, they're all going to do a nice job of supplementing. And, I think, one of the things, if you're rotating cows, or if you're rotational grazing, certainly you'll see the supplement intake go up as the forage quality starts to decline, or the amount of forage available starts to decline. This sounds dumb, but we tend to start supplementing way too late. So if you can get a 25, rangeland 25 or 3013 or rangeland 24 high fat out in, end of July or middle of July, 1st of July or something around hay season, you're going to extend that grazing season and certainly help that body condition, that cow productivity all summer long until we get into this time of year where we're starting to wean calves and things like that. So, just doing that will help wean off cows in a lot better condition, which helps you get them through winter with a lot easier. So, they all work. A lot of it depends on how much management with you can probably get, and Dr. Cosby, if you want to mute me, that's fine. But in my opinion, if you're willing to do a little more management and a little more forage management, you can do really, really well with the Accuration blocks, because they're not going to eat very much, but they're going to have it there when they need it. If you're busy and really low on labor and want a one size fits all, especially in the summertime, Rangeland 3013s have been phenomenal forever. Okay. All of those products you want to feed with mineral. And here's my reason why. Even though they all say they contain minerals, they do contain minerals. The problem is there's two elements that cows will actually actively seek. One is salt, the other is phosphorus. You don't want the cows over consuming rangeland tubs or Accuration blocks or Accuration liquid looking for phosphorus. Make sure that you have the mineral out so that they're getting the phosphorus. I mean, you can meet phosphorus demand with Accuration blocks, but it's a really expensive way to do it. You're much cheaper to use the Accuration minerals, or excuse me, Wind and Rain minerals to do that. Okay.
Perfect. So we've got a couple of more that's come in here. So Miss Yvonne, I think I unmuted you because I know you've got a handful of questions. Are you able to talk?
I am.
Perfect. I'll let you ask your questions directly to Ted this evening, if you don't mind, ma'am.
Okay. Well, if you keep your seed heads down in the springtime, will that help to keep your protein in your grass going a little longer?
Yeah, clipping pastures, which will, it's yes. And it's kind of the same scenario as rotational grazing, where when you knock that down and it grows back a little higher quality than if it just sits there and do nothing. Clipping the seed heads is more of a management for the fescue, because if we can keep the seed heads from coming, we won't have the effects of the fescue. So clipping seed heads is an excellent practice. And it will help quality. It will help the pasture quality a little bit, but it's not as good as like a rotational grazing, where you're grazing it all down to 2 inches and getting them cattle off of it and letting it grow back. Okay. So yes, it'll help.
I'm doing the rotational, but we try to keep it at 4 inches so we get grass growing a little faster.
And when you do that, yes, because you have more leaf area available, so you get more, and it gets more energy and can grow back faster. But what you're doing is then you are extending the quality of that grass throughout the summer for a longer period of time. So what you're doing is excellent. Yep.
A question about winter. You were talking about the snack eating.
Yes.
If you keep your quality hay out along with your mineral tubs and your minerals, or your protein tubs and your minerals, if they have hay 24/7, is that considered snack eating too?
Yes.
Ted, you're still muted if you can hear us.
Yeah, I hit the wrong button, and I hit the wrong button to yell at the dog, and the whole thing went blank. I'm like, oh God, what happened? Okay, sorry.
Zoom technology at its finest.
Now that I've proven that I can't run technology, we'll answer the question. Yes, when you have the hay available and then you have the supplement and the mineral, the girls will snack eat that. You don't want them to, always be camped out, at either the feeder or the feed station or the liquid station. You want them moving around for that, but they will eat, pretty much eat up on, fill up on hay. work on the supplement or get their mineral or their water and then move through. And by kind of doing that little rotation around the pasture or the dry lot, they will help with that rotation. But yeah, that is snack feeding.
Okay, thank you.
When we talk about slug feeding, I'm going to put out 5 pounds of cubes to the cows today. That is slug feeding. Okay.
Perfect. So I had one that came across in a text message to me tonight, Ted, and that was, is there benefits of feeding the liquid Accuration year-round versus just feeding that during, say, your fall feed season, maybe starting at November-ish time frame, and
Yes.
maybe ending that like March or sometime there?
Yep. Yeah, by doing that, by keeping the supplement out year round, then the girls can get what they need when they get it. And that's our whole sustained nutrition program. Okay. The reason that works, even though they're not going to eat much in the summertime, okay, they're not going to eat hardly at all. But the problem is we don't do a good job as producers as getting it out there when they need it. So usually by the time we get the supplement out, best guess is we're probably 3 to 6 weeks late. And the girls, if they may not have dropped body condition, but they're certainly holding body condition. And in the case of replacement heifers, they're not gaining like they want. But in the case of cows, we may have slowed down that fetal development a little bit to where we're not helping those girls at all. So leaving out the supplements year round is certainly beneficial, and they're not going to eat, when grass is really high quality, they're not going to eat much.
Okay, perfect. So I don't have anything else sitting here. At this point, I'm going to scroll back through and kind of make sure I haven't overlooked anything. So I did ask the folks on our Zoom platform, Ted, in regards to if they use the manure as a great tool to help with our protein supplement. And so a lot of folks are doing that. So that's a great thought that they're already tool or opportunity that they're using right now. So that's good. Had another one that dropped in here. Will the calf get too big by supplementing year round, meaning before birth, before being delivered?
That's a good question. And no, if you look at there's a lot of good data out there, and what the data says is the calf is going to grow. If you take a low body condition score cow and then a cow that's a body condition score 5 or 6 or 7, excuse me, you're going to add about 4 to 5 pounds calf weight. But what you're also doing is that cow is in really good shape. So she's actually better. She's better able to push that fetus out. So while the calf birth weight goes up less than 10%, but 5 to 7%, her energy reserves are much higher. So she can have that calf unassisted. And by having the body condition score already there, her turnaround time to rebreeding is a lot faster. So, there was a lot of thought years ago that, oh my God, we can't feed the cows. We can't feed that last trimester because the calf's going to get too big. And that's simply not the case. There's been research trial after research trial. Dr. Patsy Houghton years ago at Purdue did a beautiful job of looking at heifers and cows. And what she found is a body condition score 6, developing heifers and keeping them at a body condition score 6 and keeping those girls at a body condition score 6 their whole life maximizes the reproductive potential on those heifers and those all the way through their life. Okay.
Right. One other question that came in is kind of adding on to that. So with that year-round feeding, what type of value do we typically see back to that calf crop as well? Just kind of adding on to that a little bit more.
You know, and it varies. You know, generally speaking, you know, the benefit, not only the benefit usually is paid for when we think of the calf crop, but the benefit is to the calves we have on the ground. So we're going to get more weaning weight to help move this along, and then the next year we get the higher reproduction. As far as how much, it all depends on where we're starting. You know, because if we're, for example, say if we're feeding the cows to say 90% of what they need, okay, because we're letting them, you know, in the summertime we're letting the grasses get too short. We're not supplementing, so we're slowing that rumen fermentation down, and we drop energy intake by 10%. If I've got a calf that should wean at 500 pounds, now all of a sudden I'm weaning him at 450 pounds. So there's a 10% loss that we can get back. I would love to say if you do this, you're going to make 50 pounds. I don't know that you're where you're at. I mean, if you're weaning 400-pound calves and you feed them right and you've got the right genetics, you may get 500-pound calves. You know, it's just really hard. But what we're doing is, and that's something we need to keep in mind. You know, every year when we buy bulls or we AI cows, we're looking for better genetics than we have. We need to feed that genetics to make sure that those calves reach their genetic potential, both in the steer calves for selling, you know, here pretty quick, or the heifer calves going back into the herd.
Perfect. I don't think that's all that we've got at this time. So I'm going to take over for just a minute and kind of wrap up. So if you guys got any additional questions, kind of want to walk you guys through how you can go about getting a $10 off coupon. And tonight, what we'd like for you all to do is if you pull out your cell phone and text 95323, and in that body is type in Purina, Purina. You will receive a message back with a hyperlink that would recommend to click on. And then as Farmers Cooperative main office is there in Arkansas. And then tonight, you will see Farmers Cooperative Forage Supplementation is the event that you guys would be selecting there. This coupon accessibility is for about 2 days, so for about 48 hours. You will receive an email back. This gives you kind of an example of what that email would look like. And then there will be a hyperlink that would then get you to that $10 off coupon that you can print off and take into any of the 15 retail locations that is through Western Arkansas and then over into Eastern Oklahoma. All of these folks there at Farmers Co-op are here to help you guys feed the greatness into your animals. If you guys have not utilized any of our Purina feed, we also offer some feed greatness challenges, opportunities that you can check out on the Purina Mills website, or even just stop in and ask any of your sales folks there at the location. So we are here to help you guys. We're kind of getting down to where we're wrapping up our virtual online meeting. And we will have we got 3 more sessions on Cattle Chat. In 2 weeks, we'll have Dr. Jonathan DeClercq on, and he's going to kind of add on to the mineral program side about that year-round program and what type of intake expectations. And then about a month from now, Dr. N.T. Cosby will be back joining us talking about how can we balance out any bulk feed that we might be purchasing and the values of placing ionophores into our rations and into our products. And then right there at the week of Thanksgiving, Dr. NT is going to be back on with us to talk about body condition score targets and getting these gals ready for calving, maybe some breeding, things of that nature. And then if you guys have any equine friends or even have some equine questions that you guys would like, drop on over, and that'll be on Thursday, November the 12th. And Ty's going to be talking with us about caring for our older horses. So with that, I kind of want to remind you guys, we're going to call for last round. I know we're feeding this on Facebook Live, so we got a little bit of a delay. So I'm showing, wait, we got something popping up here real quick. Let's see what we've got. So, yes, so Billy, so that number on that text Purina for that $9 off coupon is 95323. It'll get you that hyperlink that you see here on the screen. And we'll be selecting A, as Farmers Co-op main corporate office there is in Arkansas. And then we will be selecting co-op, the Farmers Cooperative Forage Supplementation. So that will get you that hyperlink that you can print off. Don't hesitate to swing on by, check us out on any of our Farmers Co-op Facebook pages, or jump on to the Farmers Co-op website. All of our upcoming meetings are sitting there. And when you register and join us via Zoom, your name is getting entered in for one of two $25 off gift cards that we will, Farmer Co-op gift cards, to come back into the store. So with that being said, I have provided my contact information. If you guys have any questions or would like for me to come out, kind of look at your cows, kind of talk about some protein supplementation, those type of things, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And my cell phone number is 830-330-0902. And my email is also on there, and that's CKEELER@landolakes.com. So don't let that number fool you. I used to be a Texas resident, so kind of got relocated a handful of years ago. But we're here to help you guys. If you guys got some questions tomorrow morning that, hey, we got to thinking about some stuff that Ted went over tonight, please don't hesitate to drop me a call, an email, a text message, whatever's most convenient for you. And if I can't get you answered, I do know a gentleman that I can get in contact with so that we can address those questions. So, Ted, we appreciate you joining us on behalf of Farmers Co-op. We really do appreciate you joining us. So thank you for the wonderful information this evening. And with that, I think we'll sign off.
Thanks for having me. Talk to
All
y'all
right.
later.
Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.